I go and get a glass of water.
Catalyst 2030 started life as a WhatsApp group among social entrepreneurs, connecting to envision real transformational change. Launched at the World Economic Forum in January 2020, it's grown into a global movement accelerating change to ensure the SDGs are reached by 2030. Fueled by passion, our 550 members working in 175 countries have collectively put in an amazing 50,000 volunteer hours, touching the lives of 2 billion people. And we're driven by values, to which we hold ourselves accountable. 2020 was a busy year, co-creating 3 reports with partners and producing one of our own. Inviting high-level guests to participate in the Catalyzing Change campaign, hosting fireside chats and expert hours, which will be continuing in 2021. To celebrate our achievements, together we placed our supporters in the limelight with the first Catalyst 2030 Awards for Systemic Change. With the blessing of the Dalai Lama, we celebrated finalists and winners in the following categories: special recognition for our early supporters, individual philanthropists, donor organizations, philanthropic intermediaries, corporate organizations, bi- and multilateral organizations, and 4 regional winners in the category of national governments. And now on to Catalyzing Change Week 2021. During this social entrepreneur-led event, we bring together diverse stakeholders in over 100 sessions to showcase their systems change efforts and the best practices that can accelerate our work in pursuit of the SDGs.
Hello, welcome everyone. After giving this short video introduction, I would like for the hosts and especially now for Jack to open the session. Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much and welcome. People are still coming in, but let's just start to introduce ourselves. There are 2 speakers today. Rajesh is the head of Ashoka in Singapore and Malaysia. And myself, I'm the founder of the World Toilet Organization and also the BOP Hub. So I'll just give you a little bit background how Catalyst 2030 became into existence. We have about 4,000 social entrepreneurs all over the world who are listed under the big social entrepreneurs platforms. First one, the biggest one is Ashoka, and then the Schwab Foundation, and then Echoing Green and Skoll Foundation. So these four groups used to work not together. They are actually doing similar thing, recruiting people who are uh, doing solving the world's social problem, the biggest grand challenges using business model. And I belong to both the Schwab Foundation and the Ashoka group. So we have been thinking that if we were to be all doing good, and there are so many of us, uh, some are doing solar energy, some are doing microfinance, I'm doing toilets, poverty alleviation, and others are doing healthcare, education, transportation, agri-tech, fintech, all kind of things, housing, human rights. There's so many, almost every solution in poverty has already been found. And yet, we continue to have about half of the world still earning less than $8 a day, and we still couldn't solve the problem. So how could we do better? And the answer is that we cannot be alone. When we are working alone, the maximum capacity of our success is the effort and the network that we can mobilize and the funds. And if we were to think in a collective manner rather than working in silos, then we could actually develop entire community of people uh, that have every product and services. Imagine I'm just helping on sanitation, and then another person is able to give solar energy. And then when they're providing the solar energy, it could create lighting that could lead to education of the children at night. And, and then the toilets at night will have lights, and the woman will feel safer to go to the toilet. And with energy, you can also do water pump, and then the pump will go into irrigation, and then the crop will yield better, and the poor will earn more money, the farmers. And when they have more money, can send their children to school, and then take care of their old folks with some healthcare or medicine or surgeries. So in this case, an entire economy can be generated with the social entrepreneurs collaborating with one another. Imagine if 10 social entrepreneurs distribute for each other whatever product and services the other 9 are selling. We could immediately, from these 10 people, create 100 distribution channel. And if 100 help each other, we can create 10,000 distribution channel. So the multiplier effect was exponential. So we started with 80 of us talking to each other to say, you know, we started off trying to save the world. And then we become the obstacle to our mission because the maximum capacity of our ability is usually not good enough. But if we were to go all together, then we can exponentially grow the impact and don't need to, because if you, let's say you want to go to a new location, it will take years to learn and gain the trust of the local people and to be able to understand even the language, the roads, the whatever, and the politics. So if we were to just piggyback on each other and everybody learn how to help, then this would be so much more successful. So the idea of Catalyst 2030 was born out of necessity because the year 2030, the Sustainable sustainability development goal will have to be achieved. And of course, it doesn't look like it will be achieved. Most of it is still not a very successful in terms of reaching at those goals. And the only way we can reach those goals is when we start to forget about our own ego, our own personal uh, space, and become a servant to the mission. And with this ethos, we created Catalyst 2030. In January last year, we gathered in a castle called Altop House, which is the family castle or one of the family castle of Diana Spencer's family. And, and we launched this Catalyst 2030. And from there, we start to learn and spend time, learn about what each other is doing. And then we have meetings 2 or 3 times per week. Every evening, I'm nowadays, I'm in Singapore time. We don't have evening anymore because most of the time I'm either studying a course or, or, or on the Catalyst course. But we spend time to learn a lot about each other's work. Yeah. Sorry about the dog. And then over time, collaboration start and a new way of running this operation begins. So I want to ask Rajesh to introduce himself on the Ashoka platform and what Ashoka has been doing around the world and in this region. Then we'll go into the collaboration. How are we going to collaborate across sector with each other? And then we'll open for discussion so everybody can join in. Yeah. Over to you, Ashoka. I'll ask the dog not to bark. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Thanks for having me here, and lovely to see everyone join this session. Hi, I'm Rajesh, and I lead Ashoka's office in Singapore and Malaysia. I've been with Ashoka for 7 years in several different capacities. I don't know how many of you know Ashoka, but Ashoka has been around for the last 40 years. We celebrated 40 years in 2021. Ashoka, as Jack said, was one of the first few organizations along with Skoll and Schwab to talk about social entrepreneurship at a time when the field was less developed. There wasn't many people talking about it. The identity of a social entrepreneur wasn't formed. There were no accelerators. There were no incubators. It was not seen as a career. The field was pretty much empty. And I think that's when Ashoka coined the term social entrepreneurship and also said that the big idea here is that there are men and women in our society and they have system changing ideas and they drive these ideas in a very entrepreneurial way. These are the people who show the true mark of a social entrepreneur because their solutions are making the world better. Their solutions are increasing access for people who are marginalized. Their solutions are changing the way we think about certain norms and policies and laws set by society. So I think that's how Ashoka came into being. And Ashoka fundamentally said that let's identify these social entrepreneurs, call them Ashoka Fellows, and start the movement. I think that was how the field, that's how the journey began. Ashoka's core work in the last 40 years has been with social entrepreneurs. We've learned from them. I jokingly say that they are our go-to-market strategy. If we want to launch anything, we go through them. I also use the analogy of eBay, right? When eBay first started, only few people could sell. And then they moved to this space where they said anybody can sell on their platform. So Shoka said that there are few people who become social entrepreneurs, but everyone can embody the core principles of social entrepreneurship and become change makers. And the core principles are to empathize with the communities you're solving problems, to believe in a place where everyone can lead, to work in teams to solve problems, and practice the act of change making. So Shoka's vision today is to create a world where everyone is a change maker because change is the only thing around us. So why wait? Why instead of waiting for someone else? it's better to give yourselves permission to create that change. So that's a little bit about Ashoka. So Jack, over to you. Happy to take any questions on collaboration.
Yeah, now the dog is in a room, so it's no more barking. So I want to ask you, you have all these Ashoka Fellows in Southeast Asia. Um, how do you think we can get them to work together in collaboration? Because I would imagine many of them don't even know what each other is doing, let alone how to work with each other. So once you do that, then the next question is, how do we then work with companies and work with governments and work with NGOs, and then we work with everybody who is in this room. So first question is how to make the Ashoka Fellows work with one another, and then how do we pull in the other people?
Okay, Jack, I think that's our, I call it $1 million question. Getting people to work together, I think it's much harder than being said, because when it comes to getting people to work together, you're bringing people, right? And you're bringing people and their dynamics and their characters all into one place, and then saying let's shed all that and then let's work together. It's almost like saying that, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I'm just trying to set the context. It's almost like saying that we want world peace, but we seem to be fighting all the time. Um, but I think one thing that I've noticed is I've seen a lot of ideas out there, and there are a lot of similar ideas, and most of the time we don't know about another idea. And I feel it's largely because um, something that I've seen with entrepreneurs is when you are obsessed about a problem, you do what it takes, and you bring your immense grit to solve that problem, right? It's only after a few years of trying to solve that problem and making some headway, you realize that the problem is really big and more complex, especially social problems. Because if you have to define a social problem, you have the problems of caste in India, you have the problem of slavery in the US, and you have the problem of economic equality or the global problem of poverty. Like, how do you solve a problem like poverty? I think that is where it is important that social entrepreneurs, Ashoka Fellows, the government, and other organizations come together to solve it, because everybody brings in their unique strength. And I think what's important here is shared intent. If you're able to set a very strong shared intent, and then align your resources, including your personal traits, to achieving that, which means that you have to let go of certain things. I think that's when collaboration comes to play. In actionable words, I would say your skin needs to be in the game. You can't just say collaboration is a great thing to do or it is the way to go forward. But the moment you put your cards in, that's when true collaboration can start. So that's what I would say, Jack. I think some of the problems cannot be solved in your lifetime, cannot be solved by one person or a few organizations. It needs to be tackled at multiple angles, and there must be a shared goal to solve that problem. That is when I think we can get people together around the table.
So one of the things we are doing uh, at the BOP Hub is I built a 65,000 square foot building at Ubi MRT station, and I created this uh, startup co-working space. And so our solution is to get people to work together and start to collaborate with one another, and then to map all the people who are doing what, where. And eventually, we start to find that there is something they can do for each other in adjacent places. So recently, I just give you a few examples. One is that I have a startup trying to do low-cost toilet in India. And I said to him, you know, if you want to start doing low-cost toilet in India, it's very difficult. It's very hard to start from scratch. You have to learn what material, what costing, what's the profit margin, and all these things. Whereas there's a social entrepreneur in Ghana who is already doing this quite well using plastic extrusion, recycled plastic. They collect recycled plastic, extrude it, and then make planks out of built toilet, and looks very beautiful. So that's, we don't have to learn. We just have to learn from them. We don't have to learn ourselves. And we can leapfrog very, very quickly to start a new model like that. And another one has got 1,000 hectares of bamboo forests. They are farming the bamboo. And then we say to another social entrepreneur, you want to sell toilet paper? Well, I've got another guy who can supply the bamboo, because if you use bamboo to make toilet paper, then you actually can don't chop down trees, right? Bamboo is the world tallest grass, and it's totally renewable resources and grow very fast. And so you don't need to chop down forests to have toilet paper. So anybody listening in online or right here in this room who wants to do something can just come forward and say, Jack, I would like to solve this problem. I don't know how to do it sustainably, profitably. Can we brainstorm? Then I will be very happy to kind of start talking to you about your idea and try to help you to incubate and grow this solution, not by asking you to invent it totally, just by taking all the resources from everybody else. So there's once I was in slums, and I see the children are not wearing shoes. And I say, why are the small children all walking around barefooted when the adults are wearing slippers or shoes? And the adult says, so because we don't have money to buy shoes for the small children, they just keep on growing their feet. If I buy today, 3 months later, I have to buy another one. 6 months later, I have to buy another one. So we can't afford to buy so much shoes. And the young people feet are the most tender. And these toddlers or young children walking around, they step on sharp object, they get cut. And also the worms go under their feet and then go into their intestine. And so they have intestinal worms. A lot of children has bloated stomach because there's a lot of worms in there. And that's caused by not wearing shoe. One of the reasons. Other reason could be you eat something with the worms. But how do you solve this? So I go to an industrial designer, social entrepreneur, and say, can we design a shoe that stretches so that the children feet grow and the feet and the shoe grow with the feet? So we went to check and we see Balenciaga has got such a shoe. It's called shoes that fit like socks, right? And so that's very expensive brand, but then the technology is very similar. So we start to design the sole and modify, and then got it patented. That means this shoe stretches even more than the Balenciaga shoes. And so now we are going fundraising, and then we're going out to launch such a shoe. And ideas comes from problem. And every time you see a problem, then you can say, yeah, that's a problem, can't solve it. Or you say, wow, that's an opportunity. We can turn it into a business. And of course, in our sector, we are only doing social business, right? So the business that can make money and that can solve social problem, and the more money it makes, the larger the volume it grows, the more people problems are solved. And we don't care whether it is for profit or non-profit, at least it must be self-sustainable, growing. And the type of people who keep on relying on donation, their life is very tough, because today, when you talk about donation, all the donation go to COVID, because the problem is so serious. So there's no money for the other work, very, very little money left. And so instead of always fundraising, always looking for donation, it's better to create social entrepreneurship that can self-sustain, and that you can pay yourself a decent salary and still able to do good. So this is a very, very good balance. And to do it in a very efficient way, we have to collaborate. We have to use other people resource, other people experience, other people money, other people branding, influence. And that is where Catalyst 2030 helps. Because for Ashoka, you need to be working for several years before you can be an Ashoka Fellow. Whereas if you want to do social entrepreneurship work and you are not yet very experienced, or even if you are a company, or you are whoever you are, you could be a government officer or just a volunteer, but you are interested in social entrepreneurship, then you can sign up to be a Catalyst 2030 members. And then you can join. We are the ASEAN group of the Catalyst 2030. And once you join in, depending on your passion, we will start working with you on the projects that you want to solve. So either you lead, or you serve, or you support, or you help or advise, or you connect. Either way, any way you like, you will be able to find your contribution and your value to society. And I think this is the way, I think, going forward, we want to map, match, and motivate people. So when we go back to an Ashoka Fellow to say, we would like you, yes, you're very busy, you're focusing on one particular area, but we'd like you to be more self-sustainable, more profitable, more relaxed about worrying about like donor fund is not coming. Maybe you can free yourself from donor funding if you are able to generate profit by yourself. Then this kind of conversation will motivate them. They will say, wow, in that case, tell me how. I'm very interested, because to raise fund takes up a lot of my time. In big NGO, sometimes as much as 50% of their entire operational costs go to fundraising costs. So every time you raise $1, you spend 50 cents raising that dollar. So I think if you're running a business, you won't be needing that kind of overheads. Yeah. So at this point, I would like to open anybody questions, and anybody please ask us what you what's on your mind, how do you contribute, things like that. Yeah? We're very happy to answer your question. So you can unmute yourself. This is a small room, so we can talk to each other. If you don't ask question, we'll continue talking to Rajesh. If you are shy, you can type your question on the chat, and then we can answer them. So right here, we have France. Where are you from? Are you from Philippines or?
Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone. Sorry that
Yeah.
I couldn't switch on my camera. I'm driving. I was asked by Sunny Chin. He's from Paradise Eco Smart, from Singapore. So I'm attending on behalf of him. So I am presently in the Philippines right now. I worked in Singapore for 10 years. So presently now I have small businesses, but I am with Sunny to do some eco smart farming. This is to tackle about the food security and some food wastages. So we have some ongoing project right now. Hopefully this can fly later on. I'm from the Philippines to answer the question of Jack. Hi everybody.
Very good. Yes. Thank you. if you have any need to learn from other people doing similar things, just send us your contact and send us your question, and then we can start to think how to learn from other people who have already done very similar thing. In fact, whatever you are doing, there will be somebody doing very similar. So you try not to see them as your competitor, because the problem is so big. You actually don't have competitor. You have a lack of collaborator. So these are the things we can do. Yeah. Anybody else want to talk?
Okay. Jack, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Hi, Kenneth here. Your fellow World Economic Forum innovator. I have a question because, and thank you, Rajesh. The Catalyst would not be where it is without the support of all the Ashoka fellows around the world. One of the things that we do, Jack, as you may know, is we invest in a lot of tech on digital transformation, because I feel like every time someone starts a social enterprise, they all have to relearn and update themselves on all the tech that is required to set up a functioning, scalable community. So one of the things that we do is to essentially package all this tech that is relevant to, I don't know, depending on what your SDG is, and then essentially open source this toolkit so that if you're an innovator in, circular economy, there are the 5 things. Here's the tech that you need. And guess what? It's free because we made it open source thanks to the support of the startups that we have invested in by Global Citizen Capital. Would this type of approach also be useful to support social innovators or first-time, startup founders pursuing SDG action, perhaps?
Yeah, that's really a very good thing, especially when you say it's available for free. Can you type on the chat how we can contact you for the technology so that everybody can access it? This is not TechSoup? Is it TechSoup?
Oh no, it's between all our family enterprises. We invested in a few things, and guess what? Everybody needs the same thing. Every startup you invested in, they needed to spend the same amount of money and time to repeat it over and over and over again. So if 5 startups have to do it, imagine 50 startups, 500 startups. They all waste immense numbers of hours just doing all these basic things and spend so much money that they don't need and eat into the actual capital that they need to scale their impact. That's what we're trying to, facilitate and make easier, I suppose.
Fantastic. So I would like to follow up with you. This is kind of like a shared services for everyone. And our main objective is not to save the world all by ourselves alone. We have to solve the problem using each other. And digital tools like this are very, very scalable, because if we were to use the same thing, we still have it. No matter how many people use it, we'll still have it. So I think what you have offered on the table is already a big success in this one session that we are doing right now. So please contact me. I'll just type my email over here so that everybody can talk to me if you want to grow your model, and if you want to help, right? Like Kenneth, right? And if Kenneth wants to let people contact him or not, then just email me and we can privately discuss. So this is an example of how people can go together and help one another. So the power at the back is very large. There's the World Economic Forum there, and Kenneth is one of the member there, right? There is Ashoka with so many social entrepreneurs. There is McKinsey's, there's Harvard Universities, there's National University of Singapore, who is partnering with us now in Singapore to create this social startup scene. And then there is the Tata Consulting Services, who are also giving us backbone technology customized for each of the scalable social entrepreneur model. So there are a lot of things. If we have a media to put a spotlight on your work. So whoever wants to grow, we are here to help, and we want to make it very, very sustainable, right? And if it's also possible to go and find funding together, because right now Singapore got a lot of funding for this type of work. So yeah, everybody please chip in. So I like to hear from Zach. Zach, where are you from? Singapore? Zhongchen?
Yeah. So my name's Zhongchen or Zach. So I'm from Singapore. I'm actually working with Catalyst 2030 right now, like with Corina. But then this is like I'm just here for out of interest. And I'll be working with Rajesh at Ashoka in the summer. I was messaging him in the chat earlier. So yeah, I guess I just want to like have a bit of a I just have a quick question, I suppose, out of curiosity. What do you think are like the prospects for this like social entrepreneurship scene, especially within the ASEAN region, or maybe just specifically Singapore? Because the sense that I've been getting along a lot of people is that it's kind of like growing, but most people are going into startups for like financial gain, so to speak, rather than like a social enterprise per se. So I guess what do you feel is like the prospect for this scene in maybe like the next 10 years?
I think that Singapore is a country with very few problems. So it has, if you are trying to solve social problem, you are actually competing with the government, right? And they probably gonna do a very good job. And the ones that they want you to do would be the part that they cannot do. So for me, I would think that if you are from Singapore and want to be a social entrepreneur, it's better you think regionally, the entire ASEAN or Asian countries altogether. And then the problems are very large. Well, what do you think, Rajesh?
I agree with you, Jack. I think the best innovations come when the size of the problem is huge, right? And that's what we've seen in most Ashoka fellows. I'll give you a few examples. To solve the landmine problem in Tanzania, an Ashoka fellow said, "Why don't we get rats to sniff them out?" There was a social entrepreneur when she was walking into hospitals in India. She just saw a lot of people just waiting and hanging around while their relative was inside, and she said, "What can we do with all these people hanging around?" So you have social entrepreneurs asking these questions yeah, in certain contexts, and they are able to build something innovative, start an organization, hire people, work at the problem, raise funding. Whether it's through grants, whether it's through their own beneficiaries, and keep at it for years. And some then evolve to do other things. So that's the normal trajectory that we have seen. In Singapore, I've genuinely seen it a bit difficult for someone to go on this trajectory. And mainly, maybe as Jack said, the size of the problem isn't there for you to raise that kind of money and sustain, right? In the last few years, I'm quite hopeful because I've seen a lot of social impact startups, or you could even call them social enterprises. I think there's so many names, or businesses with purpose, or whatever, right? Which are trying to tackle some of the commercial problems that exist, whether it is eco-friendly noodles or a better yeah, set of innovations to tackle dementia or home-based care. So I'm seeing some interesting ideas around that. I think, and I think that gives an opportunity for these ideas to thrive. The other day, I saw an idea where two young people, aged 2021, started a form of a peer-to-peer support network for young children, so that they get access to high-quality education. So I think genuinely, I'm seeing more and more young people wanting to solve problems, more and more young people attuned to environmental issues and how we can start thinking about our food waste and all of it. So that's very promising. Now the question is, how do these organizations then survive post that initial startup phase, idea phase? They tried for a year, they tried for 2 years, 3 years. How do they still continue, or how can they collaborate with others? That's the big question. And I think that's where ecosystemic partners, government, other intermediaries, even aid, right, even philanthropic capital needs to flow in to build an ecosystem where young people can tinker. Just to give you an example, in some of the other countries, there are greater opportunities for young people to fail. But how do we create opportunities for more young people in Singapore to maybe learn from their failures and then work at it? So I think that's going to help people think about newer ways. I think this is a narrative I've consistently heard. Again, Jack said it. The government is a big player. I think the government is an important player, but I think there should be spaces for civil society ideas to thrive with the government so that we are able to solve problems in a much more equitable way. So that's what I would say, Jack.
Yeah. So talking about experience, so we have Jin Kiet, who is very experienced. So no need always young people, right? Can be young and old. In fact, we have a, a, a new model where the young and old can go together. It's called the sprinter model. You have the spring and the winter put together. So when you have spring and winter, you get sprinter, you see. So let's hear from Jin Kiet. You have a question. Yeah.
Yeah, Jack, I think it covers a bit of what Rajesh also mentioned because I think in the last few years, there has been a lot of startups coming out for NGOs, not of course just taking care of, other people, food waste, community gardens, basically all are social related. Obviously, they are quite okay when they're small and you got a few people together, then you grow to 5 people, 10 friends, and then you put some money together. But at the end of the day, I'm afraid sometimes I have to remind them, we have to also devote some time to fundraising. And nothing wrong with fundraising. And somebody had asked me that they don't feel so good that they have to ask the public for money. That you go ahead because that's how you're going to grow and do more. Otherwise, you cannot be doing this and sponsoring all of your pocket, working full time, there's a part time doing weekend. It's not effective. So in fact, there's a lot of little organizations come out, everything good intentions as we can see, but for the amount of effort, like, a group of 10, 20 people, what can they do? So the next thing is beyond the basic friends and family, how to scale up, how to do fundraising on a slightly bigger scale. I also have a little bit of interest in that because I'm actually involved in bioenergy, generating energy from biomass on a small scale, and I'm also involved in Zero Waste Singapore. So Zero Waste obviously is an NGO. We had a fundraising about a year plus ago, very small one, but quite stressful to raise funds, experience, but we didn't obviously raise as much. So now, obviously, we have to think about the next one. Okay, now that we are a registered charity, but we are not yet an IPC, so we have a board. But I think what's the next step? Because otherwise, every other meeting we are worried about, we want to do this, but you get an extra person, we have to pay the market rate, which obviously is not going to be very useful. You can't get, exactly what we want. So it's a very familiar problem. We have to worry about you getting one more employee, two more. So we talk about two, and we can't plan 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in advance. Plus the other fact, I think that many of these projects involve waste management is quite dependent on our government agency project fundings. But anyway, the basic thing is funding.
So I think that
any ideas?
If you can make money, you will get funding. If you cannot make money, even if the funding is donor funding, then they will tend to not release the money because they want to know that after they donate the money one time, you will be able to earn the money yourself continuously so that you won't have to come back to them for more money. And then you report to them all your progress that you have made money independently and then grow on it. So in fact, making money is necessary. There's nothing wrong with that. Paying yourself a proper salary is also necessary so that you could keep yourself strong enough to carry on. I don't think that doing social entrepreneurship, you have to be suffering, you know. So these are very important things to understand. But how do you substitute operation cost? So that's where you come in. For example, Kenneth says, hey, don't need to go and spend so much money doing all those basic stuff. We've got all this software for you. So that's one, right? And then there is a lot of resources. Like when I wanted to host a World Toilet Summit virtually last year, this was the first time I've ever done a virtual World Toilet Summit. Normally, a World Toilet Summit is a very big event hosted by a government, a minister or a mayor or governor. And now we have to go online. And I don't have the resource to fundraise for online because there's no sponsor for online. Then I found another social entrepreneur called Project Echo, who has a free Zoom license, and they have the tech backing and all that. And they say, after listening to what you are doing, I'll help you. So we get free Zoom license, which substitute for money. We get the tech team free, and then we organize it virtually. And it was a very, very high level meeting because online you can actually invite top people because they don't have to leave their house or their office to fly over to our venue. They just hop over and start talking to us. So for collaboration, I realized that there's a lot of resources that can substitute money. So you don't always need to raise fund. For example, if you want to employ a person in Singapore, it might cost you, let's say, an experienced person, 5,000 Singapore dollars. You can employ 10% in a developing country for that money, right? And so you suddenly multiply your manpower by 10. So in another country, for the same person, you pay $500. So it's possible. Or software development, website, apps. You could do it in Poland, in Vietnam, in all these different countries. And so outsourcing becomes very important because if you keep a very high overhead internally, eventually your burn rate is going to make you very, very nervous. So it's a borderless world, and all the people around, all the resources are available, and collaboration is the new word. You know, you have to go forward collaborating with one another. Yeah. So yeah, maybe Andrew or Sajib, you want to say something?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Andrew from Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Yeah, as I wrote in the chat, I've seen. I'm not a social entrepreneur, but I've seen a growing trend here in Indonesia that corporates are actually embarking on social missions, not out of CSRs, but also on a more strategic level. For example, they are started to work with social entrepreneurs on agriculture in terms of their supply chain, etc., etc. I've also seen two big corporations in Indonesia actually acquire these social enterprises. So I've seen. I don't know that whether this is a positive trend, but I feel like now everyone is doing social. Is the word social enterprise is still something that we're going to pursue in the future? Is social is actually belong to social enterprises only, or we might want to see a new, I don't know, a new term for doing good in the social context? I don't. This is a very wide and open question. Especially, I really want to learn from the similar trend, if anything happened in other countries in ASEAN. Thank you.
Rajesh, you want to answer that, or I will do it?
Why don't you start, Jack? I can.
Okay, so basically, if you are following the trends on companies, all companies have to be social. because if they're just making money without giving back or doing something good, eventually they paint themselves to a corner. The society is changing because the sustainability development goal is becoming a permanent trend in companies. So in multinational company, in public listed company, if you are not classified under the environment, social, or governance stock, then your stock cannot be invested by mutual funds. And therefore, you cannot have your stock price go up. Therefore, doing good is necessary for your company to perform well. And even if you are very profitable, but you are a tobacco company or nowadays a alcohol company or even a marijuana company, the mutual fund are not going to invest in you. So these are the kind of thing, like if you're a casino or something like that, you do not get your stock prices going very, very high because a lot of funds cannot work on you. And if you are a company that doing a lot of social good, then the stock price goes up. So nowadays, social and commercial are kind of merging together. Yeah, Rajesh, you want to add something?
Yeah, so how I normally look at this is I feel most problems are social, and there is an increasing trend amongst companies to create more good for people, and I think they do that in partnership with nonprofits, but they also send a very positive message right now to make this change happen. So every year, the PR company Edelman publishes this report on doing good and who are the biggest change makers, and they do a poll with the public. And the last poll that came out, the public actually said that they trust businesses to create more good. Prior to that, it was a couple of years before it was nonprofits, but even nonprofits took a backseat when it came to companies. I think companies have resources, have the talent, have the money to do good. So I think there is a great opportunity for them to work with nonprofits and to look at some of the negative impact of their work, like TikTok, for example. I think TikTok and I think TikTok is right now planning to host some great conversations around safety, child abuse, and everything that could go wrong with regard to online videos. And I think there's another company which is part of the Ashoka ecosystem, which is the Boehringer Ingelheim. It's a pharma company, and they are saying, how can our employees think like social entrepreneurs? So how can employees, as Jack said, look at problems as opportunities and then find ways to solve that problem with social entrepreneurs or with their teams. So I think that's the growing need, and I think something that's driving this urgency today is the whole push to be a carbon neutral company, or a company that is so because of that push, there is this whole drive towards how do we look at the way we produce, how we look at the way we distribute, how do we look at the way we consume, how do we, and I think that's gaining significant attention amongst companies. So that is one. I think the second big trend is there is increased transparency in our world today, meaning everyone can participate in change. So companies can't just do something stupid and then expect people to just sit by and watch, right? They'll go to social media, post it. So there's this whole need to showcase positive image that is emerging very strongly. And I think that is where companies are seeing the need to shift their tactics.
So it's the same with government. A lot of time the government can do something but cannot do other things. So where the government cannot do, right, it is things that are flexible because government has to follow some rules. So where it is very flexible, then the government uh, pass it over to the social sector. You see, the NGO are still needed because there's a lot of things that cannot be done through the marketplace. But there's a lot that can be done through the marketplace. And this is where social entrepreneurship is needed. But social entrepreneurship is not efficient unless you're collaborative. So we don't want to just collaborate with social entrepreneurs. We want to collaborate with companies, with technologies, with philanthropies, with governments, with World Bank, with multilateral. So my advice is, if you want to start doing something, dream very, very big, because you have only one lifetime and you don't have a lot of years till the day you die. And no matter how young or how old you are, I'm 64, so I don't have a lot of days. I count nowadays, I have about 5,700 over days before I die. So I have to think how I can be useful in a very, very large way, rather than how I can do it by myself. So collaboration will be very important, because people are starting to look for the meaning of their life. They used to be like show off, to be very rich, and nowadays people are starting to get more clear about that you can't bring money along when you die. So leave behind something good. Yeah. Any last comment from anybody? Sajib, is it Sajib or Pradeep? Do you want to say something or ask question, or anybody? So I would like to invite everybody to contact me, and to continue any aspiration that you have, that you would like to do, because this is about finding our usefulness, our purpose, our meaning of life. And in the beginning, when I was a young man, I thought that being a hero is actually a very nice thing to do. Everybody is going to be kind of applause and say you're a great guy. And then at this age, 64, I'm saying to you, even that's not very important. The most important thing is to see that the world we leave behind is better than the world we came. And of course, in Singapore, we have the good fortune of having a Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, who set the tone. And in a way, I think Ashoka should give a posthumous award to Lee Kuan Yew as one of the greatest social entrepreneur of modern times, because he turned a country from third world to first world. I grew up 1957. This country has a $500 per capita income, and our toilet is just a bucket system, and we bathe in public standpipe. So can you imagine a woman bathing in public, right? Of course, cover a sarong or whatever. So then there is no electricity, right? You use a kerosene lamp. And so I go through that kind of thing and look at Singapore now. It's like so rich. And how did that happen? It happened not because of donation, but it happened because of people doing business, creating job, and continuously generating income. And so making money is good. It's generate the velocity of money, get everybody to become wealthier and create more and more jobs. So social entrepreneurship is about making money, doing good at the same time. And if you see the story of Singapore, it's the same as the story of South Korea, the story of Japan, the story of even Switzerland was 150 years ago was a very, very poor country. And then they came out of poverty through banking, through making watches, through precision stuff. And every country can become rich, and no poverty needs to be around if we start thinking about other people and not just ourselves. Yeah. So I think we have reached around this time. So any closing remark, Rajesh?
No, I think, Jack, your closing remark was the best. I think we should leave a better world than the world we came into. I think one thing I want to share is I strongly feel in the next few decades we are going to see some big trends. one big trend will be how we all transition to an economy or world where we burn less fossil fuels. Some people call it carbon neutrality. Some people call it low carbon economy. And I think that is going to be a mega trend because the environmental claims are quite overbearing, what we see around us. So that's going to be a big trend. So what role can we play there? Second role is technology is going to fundamentally change our social systems. There'll be more and more engagement with technology. So what role can we play there in creating a much more humanized, just technology? And the third thing is we most likely will see a highly polarized world. We see trends of it, but there's a high chance things could get even worse. There could be us versus them politics. So how do we even navigate that? So all of these things are going to come to play, and in the midst of it, how do we stay well and be change makers and work with others? So I think that the demand of the world today is much more different from what during Jack's time or maybe 10 years back. I think this kind of change we've never seen before, and I think we have a huge role to play. So collaboration amongst social entrepreneurs, building social impact organizations, being socially minded, I think they're going to be very important as we create a much more just, equitable world.
Yeah, thanks. So there's one more session. This is like only part one. The part two is actually a workshop. So I'll be having it 2 days later with Liu Yan, and whoever wherever you have signed up, you will know that on the 6th at 4:30 there is a session, and so please also sign up on that. If you don't know where to get the URL, you go to Catalyst 2030 and you find us on the 6th of May at the 4:30. We'll have a session where we are actually going through an exercise, and there's a workshop, and you kind of answer questions that Liu Yan set out, and then you learn how to be a social entrepreneur yourself. Yeah. So please welcome you to see you 2 days later again. Corina, any housekeeping things that you need to talk to us about? If not, then thank you very much, everybody. We close this session, and thanks for your active participation. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.